Hello, everybody, and welcome back to 50 Shades of Tay. I'm Taylor Gonzalez, and my guest today is the author of novels including The Fourth Consort and Mickey 7, which was recently adapted into a Bong Joon Ho directed film starring Robert Pattinson. I'm so excited to welcome author Edward Ashton. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, well, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it, and I am so excited to speak with you all about Mickey 7 and the film adaptation. Before we get into that, though, how did you get your start as an author?
It depends on what you consider my start as an author to be. I wrote my first novel when I was 12. I wrote it on loose leaf notebook paper in pencil, in cursive. It's 220 pages long. I still have it. Only one person has ever read it, which is my father, who looked it over, came back 2 days later, and told me it was hackneyed and derivative. And if I wanted to be a writer, I really needed to think about honing my craft and figuring out what I was doing and not just spewing whatever popped into my head out onto a page. Uh, if you want to talk about actual professional quality writing, my first professional piece I sold. I was 19 years old.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I sold it to the newsletter of an Italian sausage company, which is not where a lot of people get their literary start, but it worked out for me. They paid me in both cash and a 3 foot by 3 foot pizza, which I
Wow.
still consider to be one of my better paydays. So I was pretty excited about that, and I've really kind of been rolling ever since.
Wow, that's such a cool start. That's incredible. Who are some authors that either as you were growing up or currently inspire you?
I am a voracious reader, so that the list of people who've influenced me is far too long to go into. But in terms of the sort of formative influences on me, I was an early huge fan of Kurt Vonnegut. I think I've read everything Kurt Vonnegut's ever written, which is a lot, at least once, and most things 8 or 10 times. There was a whole section at the end of Cat's Cradle that I used to have memorized by heart. I don't think I could recite the entire thing now, but the scene at the end of that book where he's on a mountaintop and they're in the forest of frozen people. I don't know if you're familiar with the book.
A little bit.
Yeah, yeah, and the scene, and there's just a line of she laughed and touched her finger to the dirt, then touched it to her lips and died, and that just was such a gut punch to me when I was reading that book. This was many, many years ago, and it's stuck with me ever since. But then, people like George R. R. Martin, his early work, I'm not as much a fan of like the Song of Ice and Fire stuff, but the stuff he wrote in the 70s and 80s was really brilliant. People like David Brin, Vinge, Alice Sheldon, the sort of 70s, 80s kind of science fiction icon people. I mean, that's when I was a little kid, and that's when I really got into this. And the stuff you read when you're little really sticks with you, I think, better than stuff that you read as you get older.
No, I completely agree with that. Uh, I love the story of Mickey 7, which is now Mickey 17. Where did that idea originate from?
There are a couple of origins to that story. The sort of philosophical basis of it, the sort of questions of identity, really come from, like a lot of my work, a long-standing obsession that I have had. I have a lot of long-standing obsessions, which is why, yeah, probably why I've got as many books out as I do. But I have a sort of a long-standing obsession with the teletransport paradox, which is a philosophical question that goes back to the 1750s, which basically asks if you could copy your mind into a completely new body that's exactly the same as your old body and take all your memories, take all your personality, everything. Would that be you, or would that be a completely different person? And it's an unanswerable question. The way that I've thought about it is think about if just imagine when you go to sleep at night, you don't go to sleep, you die. And a new person wakes up in your bed the next morning and he looks like you, he thinks he's you, he's got all your memories, he's got all your hopes and dreams and etc. But it's not you. It's a completely different person. And that person dies in his turn when he goes to sleep at night and a new person wakes up in his bed. Can you prove to me that that's not exactly what happens? Because there's no way there you can't. The answer is you cannot. That could, for all we know, that could be precisely what happens. It would make no difference in your life. And so that's basically the exact same question of transferring minds. It's as I said, it's an unanswerable philosophical question, and those sort of questions bug me. And so that's the question I was looking to explore with this book. As far as the specifics of it, that really started with just an image. I had an image, this was back in 2015. I had an image stuck in my head of a man injured and freezing at the bottom of a crevasse. And I know who he was. I didn't know how he got there. I didn't know what had happened to him. I just thought, boy, I live in a really cold place. It's cold here a lot of the time. So I think about sort of that sort of thing and about freezing. A lot of my stories have themes of freezing and cold. Um, and so that I sort of worried over that for a while, just that picture. And then I wrote a little 500 word scene that was sort of his internal dialogue. And I let that sit for a little bit. And then I expanded that into about 2,000 words. And that little exercise is now the first half of the first chapter of the book.
Oh my
And it
gosh.
just sort of grew from there.
That is so cool. If this technology either existed now or came to exist in a few years, is that something you would do, transfer your consciousness?
Not in a million years. No, my personal belief is that what you would have then is somebody else who knew how to get into my bank account and steal all my stuff. No, when you look at this question, what it comes down to is, do you believe that what we are, who we are, is just a sum of a bunch of electrical signals bouncing back and forth in 3 pounds of meat inside our head? Or do you believe there's something more to us? Do you believe that there's something unique and ineffable about me that is just me and that will never be replicated and that no one else will ever be? If you believe the former, then like copying your brain into a computer or whatever, like Ray Kurzweil wants to do, that's fine. That's immortality. Then do it. If you believe, as like on an emotional level, for sure, I tend to do that. There's something more to us than that. Then you're just creating somebody who can break into your bank. I don't think it's a good idea.
So the novel Mickey 7 was released in 2022, and Mickey 17 was just released in 2025. What was the process like of when you got your book published to the final film being shown on screens in theaters?
Well, it actually goes back before that. The Warner Brothers optioned this book for film 22 days after I handed the final draft into my agent. We didn't have, not only was it not published, we didn't have a publication contract. We didn't have a publisher, and Warner Brothers had already optioned it for film. So this process has actually been going on not 3 years, it's five for me. Like that's not how this business is supposed to work. That's not ordinary. Ordinarily, you publish a book, it becomes a bestseller, then the studios get interested, then you sign an option deal, then that's how it's supposed to go. We got the process completely backwards. Warner Brothers got interested first, and then the interest that Warner Brothers had, I think, probably spurred a lot of the interest that we got, particularly from international publishers. So with this book's been translated now into 24 different languages, and we were a bestseller in Korea. It's selling. One of the things that I do as I'm traveling is stop in bookstores and see where I can find my books. And I found them as far away as Singapore, which I think is about as
Oh,
far away from where I am as you can get. That's as far as I can tell. That is the exact opposite end of the planet from where I am right now. Um, and all that, of course, was due to the interest in the studio, and in particular, director Bong becoming involved because he's such an international star. And once he was attached to the project, a lot of foreign publishers, particularly in Asia, but also in Europe and other places, started to really get interested.
wow. That is incredible. What was your reaction when you found out that Robert Pattinson would be portraying Mickey?
um, my initial reaction was I did not know who Robert Pattinson was. I'm not really a film guy. I'm much more of a book person. Um, I obviously I looked him up, and he had just been in or was just filming Batman at that
Mhm.
time. And there was a character in there whose name was Edward Ashton, who I think was he the Joker or the Riddler or somebody like that. I don't know, he's one of the bad guys,
Mhm.
but his name in the film was Edward Ashton, and somebody tweeted something about like Robert Pattinson is starring in a movie by a book written by Edward Ashton at the same time that he's Batman in this movie with his character Edward Ashton, and like the simulation is
Oh,
glitching. And so I I think I quote tweeted something about that, and I referred to him as Robert Patterson,
uh-oh.
which was a really big mistake. Robert Pattinson, I have learned, has some of the most passionate fans on the planet. They're numerous, and they get really mad if you don't know what his name is or how to spell it. And I was the absolute villain of the internet for about a week. I got absolutely roasted.
Oh my gosh.
Thousands of responses to that, all of which are explaining to me what an absolute imbecile I am because the greatest actor of our generation is starring in a film based on my book, and I can't even get his name right. You know what? They had a point. I'm not, yes, that's a very valid point. I apologize profusely, and Ed made nice, and we're all friends now. But
Oh, that's great.
it was a rough introduction to the Robert Pattinson fan club. I will tell you
Oh
that.
my gosh. Well, you made it through. And I
I
have
did.
to say, he is an incredible actor. If I know a lot of people my age and younger probably got to know him from Twilight, the Twilight book series adaptation. But he's also, like you mentioned, in the Batman, the Lighthouse. He's in so many films where each character he portrays is completely different. And even in Mickey 17, the different versions of him, uh, it's like it's a completely different person playing each character. Like it's nuts to me. He's so good in the film.
He's got amazing range. He really
Mhm.
does. Even what he does with his voice.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw The Boy and the Heron,
Mhm.
but he does some voice acting there, and you would never guess
Yeah.
that that's who it is doing that voice. And if you look at the way he is and I've gone back and watched I think all of his films at this point, as sort of doing my due diligence.
Huh.
And if you compare the way he was in High Life versus the character he portrayed in Tenet versus the character he portrayed, so I mean he was pretty young when he did the Harry Potter stuff
Mhm.
in Twilight. But yeah, you almost wouldn't believe it's the same actor in a lot of
Yeah.
cases, which I think is a mark of a great actor, right? I mean, the fact that they're able to put on different personas. There are some actors who just like they are who they are in
Mhm.
every single role, and it's like the role is them, not they're the role. And
Right.
Robert Pattinson is not one of those people. He really inhabits the roles that he takes on, and he really inhabited this one, I think.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think A plus acting in this film. When you
Hmm.
were writing the novel, did you ever in your mind have an actor in mind? Like when you were writing, oh, if this ever did get adapted to film or a series, this is who I'm picturing in my head would play him?
No, no. The thought that this any of my books would be made into movies would never in a million years have crossed my mind. I mean, the improbability of what has occurred to get from there to here is so great and so absurd that if I wrote any of this into one of my books, I'd be laughed out of my editor's office.
Uh,
There's absolutely no way that anyone would believe the sort of string of events that led from me being sort of this obscure mid-list author to Bong Joon Ho and Robert Pattinson in a movie written based on one of my books. It's
mhm.
it I that thought just never would have entered my head. That's
That's
that's that's not how I think.
yeah. So I want to know what it was like for you the first time you got to see the film in a theater on the big screen and you saw the characters you created, the world you created. What went through your mind?
What went through my mind at that time was, man, I really have to pee. If I'm being honest, I had just done this whole red carpet thing, which I was not prepared for at all. They had told me that we were not going to have to do the red carpet, that we were going to like go into the theater through the servants' entrance. This is at the world premiere at Leicester Square, right? So they flew me over there on like 8 days' notice. They gave me like no warning this was going to happen. I show up there. There's like this person who's assigned to be my handler, which I've never had a handler before. I'm not used to being handled. That was really weird. And I'm interacting with, hanging around with director Bong, with the actors, and which is all very sort of surreal in and of itself. And then they drive me to the actual Leicester Square, to the theater there, and just kind of shoved me out on the red carpet and said, "Go." Which I had not been expecting to do that at all.
Yeah.
So, I just sort of walk out there and flash bulbs popping all over the place, and people yelling my name, and There's like TV reporters calling me over and then I finally make it into the theater, and Robert Pattinson's mom and sisters come up and
Oh,
introduce themselves and like, "Hey, you're the author. We want to talk to you." And like, I spent an hour hanging around with them. And during this entire period, it never occurred to me to go to the bathroom, and so I didn't. And then like when it's time to go in the theater, you go in the theater, and they seated us. We got the best seats in the house, dead center, middle row, right in the center, right in front of the screen. No way I was getting out. It
yeah.
wasn't happening. And this is a 2.5 hour long film,
Hmm.
you know. So yeah, the last 45 minutes of it were very rough.
Oh no.
Yeah, that was like long car trip with dad, and he's determined to get there without making a stop, and you're in the back seat kind of situation. It was rough. Um, I saw it again a week later at a private screening just for my family and some of our closest friends.
Mhm.
That's when I really got to take in the film, and that's when I really got to experience the emotions of seeing these scenes, these people. I mean, see actual lines that I wrote coming out of these actors' mouths.
Yeah.
That's when it really hit me, and there's really there's no words to describe it. It's like I said, surreal is the only word that I can come up with. It's just an absolutely out of body experience.
Mm. I had the opportunity to see it at the IMAX headquarters. I forgot what city that's in, but it's like down over by LAX. And that's a perfect theater to see it in because it's like the one where people go and they test out their film before it
Mhm.
gets released to the public. And the audience there, everyone loved it. It was just so cool to see it projected on the giant IMAX screen, which to me is the best way to see this film on IMAX. Get it the biggest
Agree.
screen possible, the best sound system. It was so good. And luckily I did get to pee before the movie because I knew it was going to be a long one.
Good call.
But
Very
it
good
was
call.
such a good film, and yeah, like I said earlier, loved the performances, loved the story, and you could just hear the audience afterwards. Like I love getting to hear people's reactions, like on the way out of theaters, and I just overheard a lot of people talking so positively about it and how much they enjoyed it. So that's wonderful.
Well, it's got a good reception from the critics.
Mhm.
I knew, and I think this is true of all really great art. With really great art, you're going to have people who love it, and you're also going to have people who hate it.
Mhm.
If nobody hates the work that you did, then you didn't actually reach anyone, you didn't actually touch anyone, right? Those are like two sides of the exact same coin. And I knew as soon as I read the script that there were people who, and that's true in my book too. I mean, if you look at the reviews on Goodreads in my book, please don't look on Goodreads. Goodreads is this one. But if you did do that, there's lots of reviews of like, this is fantastic, blah, 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 blah. And there's a smaller number of reviews of, wow, this is like literally the worst thing I've ever read. This is absolutely horrible. And like, I got you. Like if you had this visceral, I just hate this. Like I hooked into your emotions, and that's what
Yeah.
we're trying to do as an artist. You try to hook into people's emotions, and sometimes that's going to be positive, and sometimes it's going to be negative.
Mhm.
And I knew that there would be people who would absolutely hate this film, and I knew there would be a greater proportion of people who would absolutely love it, and that certainly seems to be how it's played out.
Mhm.
There's not. I haven't talked to anybody who was like, it's
Yeah.
okay. Take it or leave it. That's not a reaction you're going to have to a film like this.
Yeah.
It's going to hit for you or it's going to miss.
Mhm.
That's as an artist, that's what you want. That's where you want to be.
Yeah, because I think to me it would be worse to have a bunch of people just come out and not have a reaction. I'd rather them dislike it and be angry than indifferent, I guess.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Indifferent. That's like the thing that they always say about love, right?
mhm,
The opposite of love is not hate.
right.
Love and hate are two sides of the same coin. The opposite of love is indifference.
Mhm,
And that's, as an artist, the thing you never want is for people to be indifferent to your work. And I don't think anyone is going to be indifferent to this film.
mhm. I agree. So if you know that something is based on a book, whether it's a series on Netflix or a movie in theaters, and you haven't read the book yet, do you prefer to go out and read the book and then see the project, or do you prefer to see the movie or the series and then read the book?
That really depends on whether the subject of the film and the book is something that's really in my wheelhouse or not.
Mhm,
So things that I really get into, I like. obviously I'm a science fiction writer. I'm very into science fiction. I'm very deep into the lore and the tropes and the history of the genre. But I also I like comedy. I'm a big fan of comedies. And I actually have a very soft spot for rom-coms, if you
Mm,
can believe that. That's something. And so if it's something that's in one of my sweet spots, I will try to read the book first.
mm,
I like to read the book first to sort of get a feel for what I'm getting into with the film. If it's something that's more outside my space, but maybe I might vibe with, I'll watch the film. And if I like the film, I may go and pick up the book
yeah.
later.
No, I think that's
That's pretty
interesting.
much my process.
Yeah. I think for me, if I haven't read the book yet and the movie's about to come out, I'll just see the movie and then I'll get the book after. But if I have time, then I'll want to read up on it first and, see
Yeah,
how they adapted it. I think that's very interesting.
that tracks. That
Mhm.
tracks.
Do you have some favorite projects, whether it's a series or a movie, that have been adapted from a book?
Um, I mean, I definitely liked the Martian. I thought that was fun. I like Hugh Howey's work. I liked the book for Howie's work, Dust. I like that better than the Amazon series. I think it was on Amazon. But I thought they were both good.
Mm,
It's rare for me to see something where the film is really to mine because like I'm a book person
yeah.
where I really feel the film is better than the book. But if I look at Stardust, for
Mm.
instance, that's one case where I don't know if you're familiar with that film. Yeah,
Not too familiar. I've heard of
yeah,
it, but
so it's adapted from a Neil Gaiman book,
oh
and
right.
that's one case where the book is really kind of meh, but
Mm,
the film is absolutely fantastic. The film is really great. Night Flyers by George R. R. Martin. That's one where the book is fantastic. Again, the film adaptation in that case is kind of meh. Um, and then every once in a while you get one where the book and the film are both just, completely knock it out of the park. That's rare to hit the same for any individual person.
mm.
Because books and films are so different and you're going to hit sort of different emotional notes in a film and a book, and it's hard to really land with one individual person the same with both. But if you can do that, that's kind of the holy grail. That's really what you're shooting for.
Yeah, I think for me that would be Dune. I haven't read the books, but I love the movies, and I'm so curious to read the books, but I'm holding off because I don't want anything spoiled. I know it's old and everyone knows, what's going to happen. I'm trying to go into it without getting spoiled, see how they round out this trilogy, and then maybe, dig into the books.
That's fair. That's fair. The one that really came to mind for me in that on that end was The Princess Bride. I don't know if
Oh,
you've ever read the book of The Princess Bride, but it is equally as good. The film is probably one of my favorite films of all time. It really like it's got the rom-com, it's got the
mhm.
comedy, it's got a little fantasy. It just hits all my sweet spots. And the book is at least as good, if not better. It's really so that's one of those rare cases where the book and the movie both absolutely hit the mark as far as I'm concerned.
All right, I'll have to check it. I'm pretty sure we have that book here, so I'll have to look into it when we're done with this interview and see if I have it and maybe check that out. But
That's worth your time.
yeah, I love the movie, so I'll have to look into the book. Are you able to talk about anything that you're currently working on or any projects that are coming out soon?
Oh, sure. So my most recent book, The Fourth Consort, just released on the 25th of February. So that's in stores now. I think it's my best work. Yeah, don't tell director Bong, please. But I feel like it's my best work. It's a fun book. It plays with a lot of kind of classic science fiction tropes and turns them on their head, which is something that I really like to do. In particular, it plays on the idea of which you see a lot in science fiction, particularly like classic science fiction, that there's this society of species out in the galaxy, right, all working together for the betterment of all life and blah 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 blah, and they invite us to join. Right, that's we've seen that in like books and movies and so on and so forth. And the question I raise is, well, okay, what if that happens? And then it turns out that the group that asked us to join is actually more like a criminal gang than a benevolent society. And there really is a benevolent society out there, and they hate us, and they hate the group that we joined, and we really signed up for the wrong team. But
Mm.
it's really too late to back out now. And that's the situation that my protagonist in that book finds himself in, and it's I have a good time with it. My next book after that has already been turned into my publisher. I think they're working on cover art right now for that one. It's called After the Fall. That one will come out in January of 2026.
Oh, nice.
This is set in on a world, an Earth which has suffered a catastrophe that's wiped out 99 plus percent of all humanity. And then the survivors have been sort of subjugated by an alien invasion. And as you might imagine with a setup like that, it's a fun, lighthearted book that centers around an effort to get a new bed and breakfast off the ground. So that's like I said, it's a fun book. Like most of my work, it touches on some heavy themes, but it does so in a light-handed way. And again, I really feel like I feel like I'm hitting my stride as a novelist, if I'm being totally honest with
Oh,
you. So
that's great.
I feel really good about where these books are.
Oh, that's awesome. If people who are watching this interview are curious and want to keep up with all your upcoming projects and see that cover art when it's revealed, where would be a good place for people to come and follow you?
If you follow me on any of my social media, my Instagram account, I've got an account on Blue Sky. I still have one on Twitter for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. But on all my social media, I'm at Ed Ashton Writing. And you can also just check my website is edwardashton.com. So you can always look there too.
Perfect. I'll put some links in the description of this video so people can come and follow you. But Edward, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. I really appreciate it. Congratulations on all your success, and I can't wait to see what's next for you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.